Hi again, and good Sunday afternoon to everybody. This is your latest Hurricane Tracker video update. Well, we have a busy few minutes ahead, so let's get right to it. We now have two active systems out in the Atlantic Ocean. We have a major Category 4 Hurricane Igor, and we have a newly formed Tropical Depression 12 way out in the far eastern Atlantic. And we're still monitoring that pesky wave out there in the Caribbean Sea. So let's get right to it. Let's start with Hurricane Igor. Excuse me. If you haven't heard already, this morning Hurricane Igor developed from a Category 2 hurricane up to a Category 4, and as of this afternoon, the storm is still strengthening. Right now, Igor has sustained winds of 135 miles an hour. The hurricane is still moving to the west at a fairly good clip at 14 miles an hour. And over the next several days, Igor is just anticipated to remain a dangerous Category 4 or possibly even Category 5 hurricane. And sometime early this week, Monday or Tuesday, the Hurricane Center is expecting Igor to make more of a bend to the west-northwest. And, that will spare Puerto Rico and the Leeward and Windward Islands, which is a little bit of good news. Looking at the surface wind field map here of Hurricane Igor and the track it's taken, you can see this hurricane has been pretty much on a due westerly course, and the red area indicates the hurricane force wind field, and the orange is the tropical storm force wind field. And the satellite presentation, you can definitely see a very well-defined eye and a very well-organized hurricane, and the storm is pretty much following the National Hurricane Center points fairly closely. So what does the future hold for Igor? Well, right now Igor is under the influence of a very strong high pressure out here in the central Atlantic, and that's been responsible for pushing Igor on a westerly path. The long-term fate is very difficult. There's several computer models that, in fact, you're looking at one of them here. This is one of the computer models that now takes the storm just a few hundred miles off of the East Coast as a very large and powerful hurricane, with the storm still moving towards the northwest. So if you live anywhere from Nova Scotia, Canada, down to the Carolinas, pay close attention. This can be a very dangerous situation. Hurricane models, several of them are taking it on a northwesterly course early this week, with a bend more towards the west middle to late next week. So there is a chance that a high pressure area could build over northern New England. And of course, as you know, air flows clockwise around high pressure. And if we get a high pressure building up here in southern Canada or northern New England, that would tend to put the storm more on a west-northwesterly course with possible landfall on the East Coast. So we're going to need to keep a very close eye on this one. There is about a 15 to 20% chance as of right now that the storm could make landfall on the East Coast. But hurricane models have been trending further to the west over the past couple of days. So again, we're going to need to keep a very close eye on a very dangerous Hurricane Igor. I wanted to show you the visible satellite from this afternoon. Doesn't get any prettier than this, if you want to call this pretty, but has a very well-defined eye and a very large circulation. So as far as the satellite's concerned, Igor is looking very good. Now to our next item of note, the tropical disturbance out in the Caribbean Sea. The Hurricane Center is still giving it 50-50 odds on development over the next 48 hours. But if it does develop, there is a little bit of good news that's coming out of this system today. Over here on the right panel is a forecasted map of the upper levels of the atmosphere over the Gulf of Mexico for this coming Wednesday, the 15th. And computer models are showing a very strong ridge of high pressure with winds flowing clockwise around the high pressure. So the storm, if it comes out of the Caribbean, would pretty much follow these arrows to the west or west-northwest, with a very high likely chance that the Yucatan Peninsula would be affected, with a second landfall here on the eastern Gulf Coast of Mexico. So this is good news. A dominant high pressure ridge would serve to protect the United States Gulf Coast. But if it were to slide just a little bit to the east, that could allow more northerly movement. So we'll still keep an eye on it. And again, 50-50 odds that it does develop. And the computer models are pretty much in line, showing that west-northwesterly movement across the Caribbean Sea. The third storm, we have a newly formed tropical depression out in the far eastern Atlantic. Should become Tropical Storm Julia by sometime tonight, and eventually Hurricane Julia middle part of next week. Right now it looks like it's going to take a track into the open Atlantic, and but we'll keep a little bitty eye on this one because computer models are showing a west-northwest to northwest track, not really a total recurve out into the Atlantic by any means. So we'll keep an eye on this one for you. A couple of other items I wanted to show you today. First is going to be over here on the left panel, the latest infrared satellite imagery over Hurricane Earl today. And you can just see it's a beautiful looking storm, but very dangerous. Already a very strong Category 4 on the way to possibly a Category 5. It's in a very low wind shear environment, so conditions are very favorable for it to maintain Category 3, 4, or 5 status here over the next several days. Over here on the right is an animation of the NOGAP's hurricane computer model, and it looks pretty scary at the end. It shows the storm developing into a very strong hurricane, very large and powerful. And at the end of the cycle here, wants to bring it pretty close to the United States on a west-northwesterly track. So again, if you live anywhere from the Carolinas up to Nova Scotia, Canada, I cannot stress enough that you need to keep a very, very close eye on Igor, as it is not a guarantee by any means that Igor will recurve out into the Atlantic. Last satellite here is our disturbance in the Caribbean. You can see today the clouds associated with the disturbance have diminished, but it is picking up a slight circulation. If you look closely where my mouse is pointing, you can see a slight circulation or spin there. The hurricane hunters are flying out there this afternoon to see what's going on. So this evening in the Hurricane Center, we'll be able to relay some new information to us. But it is moving to the west-northwest at 15 miles an hour. Again, 50-50 chance of development. It is in a low wind shear environment. Upper level winds are only about 5 to 10 knots, which are not strong enough to tear the storm apart by any means. But it's been battling some dry air coming into the northwest, from the northwest here. So if it wasn't due to this dry air, we would already have a tropical depression. But it's fighting and struggling, and there's a good chance it will develop in the next couple of days, hit the Yucatan Peninsula, and then most likely go in to a landfall south of Texas. So again, we'll keep an eye on all of these systems for you over here at the Hurricane Tracker app over the course of the next week. And thank you to everybody for being a Hurricane Tracker customer. Please go into iTunes, take a minute or two, leave us a quick review. Let us know what you think of these video updates, the audio updates, and the app as a whole. We certainly appreciate your business, and hope everybody has a great week. And we will come back and talk to you as soon as we can. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.